Yeah, you sound great. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Actually, there's a bit of an echo. Are you where are you at?
I'm down in my basement. Uh, should I move?
Oh no, it'll be fine. As long as as long as it'll be quiet down there, you'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah. So about the quietest place on the farm I could find. Kids, kids away from kids.
I understand that. Like, you've never been to my place, but I'm down here in a basement too. And the reason it doesn't echo because I've got sheets and blankets and clothes and foam all over the walls. So it did a lot to kind of deaden this place down. Otherwise, it needed a little work before I used it as a studio. We'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
So this first episode we're doing in 2023. Tell me how your 2022 turned out.
Well, it turned out pretty good with what we had, but with what we had to go through. But overall, I could definitely say it was a challenge. We had a lot of drought issues, definitely. Um, we did the numbers here the other day, and yeah, we weren't quite like we had been in the past couple years, but nothing to complain about.
I can imagine the stress that I feel trying to make sure my cows stay in the kind of correct nutrition over the winter with the drought. What's that like? What's that been like for you?
Well, buying in hay has been the biggest challenge for us with the drought. We had a lot of cows to feed, more cows than we had in the previous years. We've been expanding our herd the last couple of years, and buying hay has been the biggest thing that we've had to deal with, and sourcing hay. We've been looking for organic hay is what we kind of stand behind is the organic alfalfa. And we had to go to three different states to find what we needed. We went to Missouri, Nebraska, and Iowa. Usually, people around here are sending alfalfa that way, and now we're bringing it back. It seemed like so. I was really just glad to find some really what it came down to because I knew we needed it and was not didn't have selling cows in the plan, getting rid of any cows just because of our markets we had. So yeah, the alfalfa hay thing was definitely the biggest. Of course, pasture challenges of trying to keep residue on the fields and the pastures when we had all the wind and the dust and blowing everything everywhere. So that was the other challenge we had. But on the customer side, uh, it was good. We really had a good year on different foods we produce. So um, yeah.
Yeah, that I remember. I think it was back in the spring. We came through for one of our semi-regular shopping trips, and you had a new product. And what are they? 8, 10 ounce little coffee drinks?
Yeah, they're 11 ounce is what the bottle is. Yeah. Yeah.
You want to
Talking about,
yeah, talk about your coffee drink.
yeah, the cold brew we're doing. Yeah. Well, we've been talking, other people have been talking to us about you go to Starbucks, you buy this expensive coffee drink but you need to make a coffee drink with raw cream in it or some kind of a healthy dairy additive in it. And so we started looking around and found some good cold brew coffee and started to do some testing. And I don't know how many different test batches we drank. And it's like, man, I drank some that's more coffee than ever just doing all the testing. And so we finally came up with it. Well, we need a glass jar or a glass bottle. And so we found that, and then we got to like, man, this stuff, we get a lot of cost in it. And it ended up, we're like, well, you start comparing it to anything else for a specialty drink, and it's not that expensive. So yeah, that's been a fun product and a product that has been really selling well.
Okay, hold up. It's not just a cold brew coffee drink with raw heavy cream in it. It's got what else is having it? Maple
Oh,
syrup?
it's got maple syrup. It's got some homemade vanilla, organic vanilla, and it's got the cream in it, of course, and if there's any other ingredients in there. But yeah, it's all the no additives, no preservatives, no nothing. So when the shelf life, it's got a shorter shelf life than what you'd buy at a convenience store, but hey, leaves more for us if it doesn't sell.
I volunteer as tribute next time you're developing coffee flavors. I will happily come up and do all the taste testing you need. That seems like it's something that's right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, yeah. No, we usually have the kids and everybody are like grabbing it as soon as it gets outdated or something. If there's some that does get outdated, then we all have our pecking order.
Right on. I uh I still think you could maybe mark that up and you'd still move a lot of units, man. That's good stuff. And there's nothing else like it anywhere.
That's right. That's right. That's the thing that we were like, you can't get a ready-made product with a raw grass-fed dairy additive in it anywhere. And it's like the more we can value add, the better. It's kind of what our trend has been.
Awesome.
So
So let's kind of circle back to your winter feed. And I know that, with the drought and I know feed costs are expensive and I imagine it's we don't need to talk about it. Let's talk about your fodder system because that's one of the ways that
sure.
really helps you kind of save on that front, isn't it?
Yeah, the fodder system has been very helpful, mostly for winter production. I mean, it does help on less hay, but it works really well to add with the hay program we have for the winter. Through the summer, of course, we don't do the fodder, but through the winter is when we start it up, and it grows well when it's cold. We have a room that's insulated, and we have growing trays, like a big rack system where it's all indoors. And it really it the benefit that really helps is the energy for milk production on the dairy farm, coupled with we mix it with the alfalfa, with the dry alfalfa, and it's like inoculating the alfalfa back with all the wet moisture that comes out of the fodder as it mixes and grinds. And so that really helps the cows consume the alfalfa better, but it also makes the fodder more usable as it's mixed together with the hay. So you're what the idea is turning the starch from the seed into a sugar, which is very highly available to the cow's rumen. And the idea that I like to say is you trade a seed for a plant, and you get all that root system uh, producing lots of sugars that the cows can really absorb well. And as far as costs, I mean, there's costs in it. There's labor in it to take care of it, but you just get so much more out of seed. And with having or, uh, organic grass-fed dairy, it works well with that program. So, you know, with us milking grass-fed cows throughout the year, it's one of those, I call it a must to get through the winter. and keeping the milk production going. But yeah, this past fall, we actually almost doubled the system. So we bought in another system and added it to the original system we've had for, I think it's been 8 years now. So we've added the system, and it's been really helpful, especially this year. More cows, availability of hay has been a little lower, and so it's been a blessing in disguise to find that new system. And we didn't have to add on to the room. We just went up. We bought a lift, a man lift, where we can get up there and do all the work up in a convenient manner. And so we're just harvesting a lot more every day.
I remember you told me that you'd pretty much doubled it. And the last time I was up at your place, it was a couple months ago. It's been since Gale's Field School that I was there. I don't think you
Okay.
were around. Anyway, yeah, I didn't see a new building over there where your fodder system was, and that explains it. I could just see you guys cruising around there on like a little scissor lift going up and down
Yeah.
to check the fodder. Can you can you kind of describe like how that's set up and how that works for the folks that are listening?
Sure. Well, the idea is that you take a seed, you soak it for about 12 to 24 hours in water. So there's no nutrients, there's no soil involved. So a lot of people think of it as a hydroponic system. Well, this has no nutrients going in. So it's not like any artificial nutrients or anything. It's just the seed and water is all it is. And it's just letting the water sprout the seed and then creating a feed source for the cows. So it starts in a just a 5 gallon bucket, and mix a little bit of peroxide in it with water and let it set overnight. And then the rack system is about 15 feet long, and there's uh, 12 inches between every tray. So there's a tray. Every tray is 10 inches wide, and then every 12 inches there's another layer of trays. So there's 10 inches by 15-foot long trays hold about 10 pounds of dry seed. And so one 5 gallon bucket of seed will seed 2 trays. So 20 pounds in a bucket equals 2 trays. And so the trays are irrigated every 4 hours, which continue the cycle, on a timer every 4 hours. It waters it for 2 minutes. And so from start to finish takes 8 days. So there's nothing but water every 4 hours going and irrigating these trays. And the way that irrigation works, at the end of the far end of the system, there's a irrigation line which will just kind of flood irrigate it for 2 minutes, and it'll gently flow throughout the tray. The tray's on a slope, just a slight slope, and it takes the water down the end, and if there's any, it drains off. There's some systems that will reuse the water through a filter system. This one does not. There's a little bit that runs off of it, but that just goes outside. But the system itself will do it all the watering automatically, and then the manual labor is taking the harvest the fodder off of the trays, and then washing them down and putting the wet soaked seed in the buckets on the trays every day. So it's just a continual cycle every day. And it just becomes a big old mat. Gets like a 2-inch deep root system, just completely dense mat like a carpet, and then you got like a 4-inch green growth on top. And the green growth on top, there's not a whole lot of weight there. Most of your weight is in your root system, and that's where most of the nutrients are. I mean, the green growth on top will of course add nutrients as well, but the bulk of the feed is in the roots. So um,
You ever weigh
yeah,
it?
yeah. Our mixer wagon, which we dump it into after we harvest it, has scales on it, and so we're harvesting about 1,300 pounds every day, is what we're harvesting. So uh, there's about 220 pounds of dry seed going on, and yeah, so there's about 6 times as much coming off as going on in an 8-day cycle. So
That's the number I wanted.
yeah. Yeah, that's usually what I get asked a lot is how much more do you get? Well, there's a lot of nutritionists that will argue that well the weight is just water. Well, technically it is just moisture, but you've 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 germinated the seed, which opens up it opens it up to a whole new feed source, is really the way it works. And so yeah, it we do have grow lights in there. Some people I've talked to said that it doesn't change the nutrient profile any, but hey, I like green growth, seeing green growth in the middle of the winter when it's dry outside and nothing's growing outside. So
I didn't really see much green outside growing even during the growing season.
that's true. Very true.
I just like to see something green and growing. It doesn't really matter when or where it is anymore.
That's right. That's right.
Uh,
So
I think the good news is, and I've been seeing this for long enough, I'm comfortable finally saying it. The Climate Prediction Center is saying that La Nina will go away in about 2 months. We'll start like the ENSO, the Pacific circulation pattern is supposed to break and go from the La Nina toward an El Nino, which, given the pattern we're in, should mean that it's supposed to get a little more damp here.
yeah.
I'm not going to cross my fingers just yet, but I think there is drought relief coming our way this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we just gained a 3/4 inch yesterday here on the farm, so that was a big surprise. So every little helps.
I don't even think I got enough to measure.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was but it was super foggy all day. Like it was one of those days that I left the house and visibility was a quarter of a mile. And I've got to go up, I think it's like 220, 240 feet of elevation from my house out to the ranch in like 8 miles. It doesn't sound like much, but I leave the house and I get up the top of Junk Pile Hill and the fog's even thicker. Like, okay, this is not good. Go down through Bear Creek and get up to the top of the next ridge, and I couldn't see anything. Like, I mean, we were headlights on down to 35 mile an hour on a road that I drive 3 times a day, or at least once a day, almost every day for a lot of years. Couldn't hardly see. I'm getting close down to the highway, and I'm thinking, like, visibility is 500 feet. Like, okay. So I've got this little trail that I use that it kind of connects to oil field lease roads, and it keeps me from having to make a left-hand corner out onto the highway and go a quarter mile down and turn into the yard. So I just thought I'll just go ahead and I'll just take this cut off through the pasture, and I took it both ways. Um, I took it when I left too, but then I got there and I jumped in the gator, and I'm going out trying to do my rounds. I it's not safe to be out on the highway when it's that foggy, when you just can't see anything, and it takes 3 times as long out in the pasture to get anything done because you can't see. It's like I'm out there acting like Ray Charles, tapping around with a fence post in front of the gator to try to make sure I'm not getting ready to drive into something out looking for the cows.
Drive over your cows.
Yeah, almost. So yeah, we worked in the office yesterday and watched it be foggy from the inside. It was kind of nice. But I'm glad you guys got some rain. I think you've caught a couple little showers that I haven't got too.
Yeah, we had a little bit here in the last couple months, but yeah, it'll be take a lot to get stuff growing in the spring, definitely. I know we're gonna have that issue to deal with.
Yeah, it's not a question of how much rain we need to get back to quote right or get back to, normal. I mean, we're going to get what we're going to get. I just hope we get enough that, we do have something green and growing in April and May.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So did I hear you correctly that you actually have expanded your cow herd this year?
Yes, yes. Well, we bought in a young bull from back east, and then of course the hauling. We had to pay hauling, and they said they have a couple heifers, so we bought a couple heifers that were closer to the 100% profile, like the Dutch belted. We have the Dutch belted dairy cows, and there's a big dairy in Pennsylvania. It's called Dutch Meadows. If anybody wants to look it up, they've got a family of farms where we've been we've been back and forth. We bought a bull from them, and they've they've done some business with us too. So uh, yeah, we've just been keeping all the heifers here the last couple of years because supply wasn't keeping up with demand here on the farm for our retail business on farm store here. And so we were keeping all the heifers, and of course we keep all the steers as well. And pretty soon we got way more calves than we know what to do with because we kept all the rest. So we've just been keeping them and milking more. We hit 40 cows this fall, and that's been the highest since we cut off the milk truck about 6 years ago. So uh, it's been good, but we've realized one of our limiting factors is land. Just because we're a grazing dairy farm, one of the biggest limitations is you're walking the cows to a dairy barn, and you can't just walk the cows down the road to another pasture every day. So yeah, that's the thing we talk about a lot is, so how do we keep um, the cow herd growing with the land acres we have? So anyway, we continually talk about that. So
And I think that's something that is probably that a lot of people need to be thinking about is how do we do more on what we're already paying for without taking without hurting our future, I guess, without degrading the land base for future use. How do we get, how can we get more from what we've got? And Loyd, I don't know about you, but since the last time we did one of these podcasts, the input section on my balance sheet, like all the costs for all the inputs for everything, um, it looks horrible. And
yeah,
I don't
very much.
and those costs, those inputs aren't going to be, I don't think they're going to come down a whole lot anytime in the near future. Um,
Yeah.
so what are some ways you've managed to do more with less?
Well, you get my mind spinning when you ask that question, because we have all sorts of ideas and things going on, and yeah, we're just like the coffee drink we did. The value adding has been one of the biggest successes for us is making products out of ingredient that we produce, like milk. There's there's just we live in a convenient society where everything's convenient for everybody. And, you know, most of us farmers don't think about that when we're producing stuff. We're trying to produce uh, often a commodity with volume. And, you know, like just like you said, a grass-based dairy with limited acreage, you have to be creative. You have to find your niche. You have to be able to figure out, you know, what are people buying? What's the current, you know, market that's available? You know, how can you solve the people's problem that they're having with food? And so we've just been really doing value added things. Like our cheese is probably one of our biggest uh, sectors of our value adding enterprises. I mean, we do, like, one of the kids started a little chocolate milk business, and that has just been taken off tremendously. You know, putting it in small, convenient, you know, 12-ounce bottles is something we never thought we'd do. Like, who can't just take a gallon of milk home and make some chocolate milk? But that isn't the modern consumer. You know, they want something that's fast, convenient, and ready to go, and you know, they don't have to store it. They can just drink it, and they're done with the product. And so putting it in manageable use containers is a thing we've really started doing. You know, we'd never sell milk less than a half a gallon. Now we're selling milk in 12-ounce containers that people grab and just drink on the way. Just crazy things like that. You wouldn't think about it until you see the margins on those things. It's just like, you know, people will look at a gallon of milk and think of the price at the store, but they'll never hesitate to look at the price at a convenience store for a little bottle of chocolate milk. So, I mean, human psychology is always interesting to me, how that all works. And, you know, we all fall prey to it. It's not like them out there. I do the same thing, but sometimes we forget about that when we're producing food or farming. It's just part of it. And so, you know, the chocolate milk thing, the eggnog, you know, making eggnog, you know, making ice cream, and putting it in small containers. I mean, we all know that when you have a organic grass fed and organic ingredients without preservatives, it makes for a higher priced product. But people don't think about it when they get those small containers of ice cream and single serving cups. It's a completely different product. And that's, you know, packaging is so huge. You know, the looks of it, the way people use it. I know there's a lot of food industries out there that will it, change the size of a package by 1 ounce or something, you know, just for various reasons. And so, yeah, value adding is definitely something we've really gone down. But on the as far as farmland side, on the farm acreage, so yeah, you can't make more acreage, but you can do more with the acreages you have. And so there's a guy that helped me kind of understand how often uh, farmland is just considered as production acreage, and in reality there's so much more. You have your production, and then you have your experiences that you have on the land, and then your education, things like that. And so we've branched out into some experiences on the farm. We've been doing parking RVs on the farm for a while now, several years. I think we're going on the third year now, and that's been really good. You know, people love to come out in the farm, see what's going on, escape crazy urban life.
Is that
And
Harvest Host?
yes, Harvest Host is that. And that program is just a they can park for free, but then they're expected to buy from you from whatever you sell. So they park for one night. You don't have to provide anything for them, just a parking spot. They'll be gone the next morning. And yeah, they usually we've got an average of about $60 on an average sale that we get from them. So I mean, it does help out on the farm, definitely. And we've had a lot of repeats coming back, and of course most of those travelers have a great social media following where they'll do a good advertising for you. So some have got pretty good sized YouTube channels, and and you get exposure that way. The thing we're working on this winter and planning to try to have it open by the spring here in March sometime is a Airbnb on the farm. So we have an old barn we redid, and we're putting in a small Airbnb apartment there, and so we're coming along on it, and we've got the loft up on top where we can do some events if we want to. And we had a fall fest here in October where one evening people came out. We had chili, cinnamon rolls, and of course a whole bunch of cheese. And we had
You know, if you go somewhere else in the world and you put chili on your cinnamon roll, they look at you really weird.
well, I would.
Really? You didn't grow up with that? Like that was a
No, I
thing.
put everything else in my chili, but not cinnamon rolls.
Maybe that was just around here. I, I'm
I've heard of it. I've
I'm
heard
not
of
that
it.
guy either. Don't put sweet stuff in my chili. That's not cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put pickles and onions and everything else in it, but no
Pickles in your
sweet
chili?
stuff. Oh yeah, like canned pickles, like your garlic dill pickles. Yeah, my kids think I'm crazy, but it's good.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah,
I
yeah,
maybe I'll give that a try sometime. There's plenty of chili gets consumed in this house in the winter.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're just looking at creative ways to utilize the farm and uh, keep the farm viable. We've got 5 kids, and there's things that they can do on the farm that doesn't have to be just straight production. I mean, we all get tired of doing chores every day for 10 years of our childhood, and we have this idea that we rather not just try to push them away from the farm because they're tired of it, but keep creative things going on where they're still excited and connected to it. And like this farm fest, they could have their friends over and help serve food or whatever, and have a fun time as well and make good memories. So yeah, things like that we keep in our thoughts.
Very cool. Very cool. Have you done any soil testing in the last year or any monitoring on your pastures?
I have not. We've gained some soil from our neighbors. We haven't tested that yet, but we've had quite a bit of wind here in the fall and even through the summer, that we've, dust storms have been pretty normal. But yeah, keeping I keeping residue on the surface has definitely been a challenge this past season. I haven't tested any soil for a while. I used to do more of an input system where it used to be farmland that we had here. And so we kept kind of the soil testing going as we kind of were planting cover crops as we transitioned away from the cropland acres into more perennial pasture. And then after we started planting more perennials, we kind of phased the soil testing and things out. I did one, oh, just to do a check on and I don't have it in front of me. I don't remember exactly what I saw. I know the organic matter went up some. As far as how much, I don't remember, but it was all plowed, very high tilled ground before we started grazing the cattle. So, yeah.
Okay. You were talking earlier about, the value adds and the chocolate milk. And I remember a couple years ago when we started coming up to your store, and okay, so what's a gallon of milk today?
So gallon milk, we sell it for $12.
$12, and then one of those little coffee drinks in an 11-ounce jar is $11. I imagine you sell the heck out of chocolate milk in those 11-ounce glass bottles, and you probably can charge whatever you want and people pay it.
Yeah, yeah. The funniest thing is that I always just can't get over is like, you know, yeah, our milk is higher than conventional milk or grocery store milk, and yeah, and people will come in there and it's like, oh my goodness, the price of milk, and that's just way too expensive. But then they'll buy chocolate milk, and that's even, that's double. But it's in a smaller container. It's not by the gallon, of course. But anyway, we'll add chocolate to it for you. So
Oh, eggs. I haven't gone to the store in quite a while, but I've seen this on social media. I've been seeing it for the last a week or 10 days or so about eggs. Like eggs are now suddenly hard to find in the grocery store, and when they can find them, prices are high. They're really
that's
high.
right. Yeah.
Um, and you know, I remember back to the start of COVID when everybody decided they were going to get chickens, right? Everybody got chickens started COVID, and everybody was giving away eggs.
Mhm.
And then 2021 and 22, uh, my wife Tanya and some other folks were like, "Hey, look, quit selling your eggs for $1. You are not doing anybody any favors by selling your eggs for $1 or even $2.
Mhm.
It probably costs $4 a dozen to get your eggs,
Yeah.
so at least sell them for that or give them away." And then all the uproar. Oh, $4 a dozen. That's way too much. I'm going to go to the grocery store and pay $2 a dozen for eggs. No, $4 is what they should be costing at minimum. I think I
Mhm.
said that within the last year. Like eggs at $4 are not expensive. That's just what they should cost. And now it seems like you couldn't even get close to eggs for $4 at the grocery store. Is that
Right. Yeah, very much so. And if you can find them, I was talking to someone here last week that went to three of the big stores in Wichita, and they were out of eggs, like Costco, Whole Foods. They didn't have any eggs, and we've been, we've got a small flock of pasture chickens, and we had a lot of eggs, going into the fall, and we're sold out. It's just, we we have the pastured eggs. We get we're at $7, and you know I know that a lot of the eggs in the store just escalated. The prices just escalated like crazy, and I just heard yesterday that how many million chickens uh, that got the avian influenza, that had to be put down, and things like that happen. with the system we're in.
The let's stay there for a second. That bird flu, like it seems like that was 18 months ago. Or am I not remembering that right?
Well, it's been going on for quite a while. I don't know all the details from it. I just know from what I've heard that there were there were a lot of flocks being hit with it. Um, yeah.
This is where like somebody like Joe Rogan that has a Jamie that can do all this research and pull it up makes sense. It doesn't seem like this is a thing that's just happened like over the last couple of weeks. It seems like the event that's triggered like the quote egg shortage or high egg prices in the store, it seems like that was several months and months and months ago. And maybe there were some warnings about it. It I guess what I'm trying to say is it just seems like this is like the supply chain is catching up. Like, you know, it was a couple months ago the bird flu happened, we had to cull birds. And there were warnings like, okay, eggs might be in short supply. And people were like, oh no, there's no problem with eggs because the warehouses were still getting cleaned out. And now the warehouses are
Mhm.
empty. There's no production to refill them. Now there's an egg shortage.
Yep. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to get egg production up this time of the year, especially, shorter days. And of course, most of the egg production facilities, are all artificial light anyway. But
They just turned the lights on a little bit longer.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, it is definitely a problem that we see. We've got people stopping in that never stop in, just looking for eggs. Like, no, we don't have any. I mean, we do have, every day we get some, but it's not like we have a stock of them. So,
After the Borntrager family eats their eggs, there might be a few left in the store for tomorrow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Understandable, totally understandable. Um,
So,
let's see. So what you got any other big plans for 2023?
well, the first thing that we're thinking of, we're heading to on a vacation. We're going to be traveling to Southern California on the beach in March. We do try to do a family trip every once in a while, and we did it here about 5 years ago. We traveled out there on the Amtrak train, and so kids are all excited about that, and yeah, I am too. All farmers need to leave the farm one time or another, get a little break. But as far as plans on the farm, we're just we've been we've been doing our dairy deliveries to several different areas, and that's been growing quite a bit. Kind of following the convenience thing we were talking about earlier. Uh, that's been that keeps growing. We keep talking about putting up a new storefront on the farm here. We're trying to get the barn kind of finalized before we do that. Let's see what else.
Can I
We're
suggest a little bit bigger of a sign out by the road?
yeah. Yeah, I tell you, we've been talking about signs for a long time, and I keep getting told, well, we're selling all we have. Why do we need a bigger sign? And it's like, yeah, that's true. Because our land butts up to the highway, so we could put a sign out by the highway and even have a little more exposure there. But it's like, wife keeps telling me, well, where are we gonna get some more milk from if we run out of milk? So that's always the thing we keep talking about too. So yeah, bigger sign, uh, more more online presence, things like that is something we continue to work through. Yeah, just navigating the whole employee thing is another thing we're doing. We've the last 3 years we hired another employee every year, and so this year we'll see where we find ourselves here in the next couple months in the business side. But
Employees
it's
employees can be very expensive pets.
they yes, it's a whole new beast to conquer, being on a farm with with family, handed down from a family farm, and you run it as a family farm, and all of a sudden you start doing all these crazy things. You start selling direct, you start value adding, and well, the one thing that needs to be added is people to make that work. And so it's not like adding another piece of machinery. I'll just tell anybody that who's looking into it. But it definitely is a lot to learn. I'll tell you that. Just being able to manage people, something that most farmers are not used to, much less just being around people. Um, so yeah, managing people, managing the farm as a business, so people can be involved. You can't pay yourself, you won't pay your employees for sure. And being ahead of the numbers, because once you start having people involved, everything speeds up. It seems like you don't have all the time to just think about it too long. You kind of have to make a decision and keep going. uh but yeah, it's the nice thing about it is that uh not every single thing depends on you. As you kind of start handing stuff off, it does make it easier for you and the family to get away, like the trip we're taking. Makes it a lot easier for that, something like that, definitely. But it's just a daily, you're just deeply engaged in it every day. And yeah, your your brain is tired by the end of the day, and you're just, yeah, you realized how much you think in a business like we have. I often think of the principles of soil health, and how often to make the soil great, to make the farms profitable, and to keep the generations going, we have to be centered around people. And people skills are just something that most farmers just have a hard time with, or at least I have. I should admit that. But uh there was this past summer, we were gonna be involved with a farming conference about this very subject, about building teams, about having people involved on the farm and things like that. And it was planned at Joel Salatin's. It was planned at Polyface, and we'd registered, and we were really excited about it. Learning from others about the people side of a farm business, and they could not get enough people to make it worthwhile to come together. And that just really opened my eyes to the reality of the situation we're in. Like, we really have a hard time enjoying the people side of the business in farming. And um, yeah, I mean, it has to be profitable, and it's very easy for me to think often I could go get a different job and be involved with people and get paid more. But when it really comes down to the end of the day, it's like I wouldn't want to trade the food production. You're making a difference on the land, you're making a difference in the people, and then even the people that come and help you, you're making a difference in. And so that's really the fuel that keeps me going even in the hard times.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Ties back with an earlier comment you made that's probably the title of this episode. Solving problems with food.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, you'll never be done with that.
No.
Oh, that that's a big subject there. When you get into food systems and how to how to remain viable and solve the problems that are at hand because there's big problems out there. You know? It's not just cheap food. There's a whole lot of other things. There's control, there's you know government intervention, and just tons of things that we get to solve as these small scale food producers. So yeah, the challenge will never end, I guess.
Well, okay. So the thing that popped into my head as you were talking was government subsidies. I know I don't really get any. I suspect you probably don't get a whole lot either, being
No, I don't get a dollar from that.
it seems like those of us that are, doing grass fed direct to consumer, there just aren't any of those subsidy programs that are really around to help keep us in business. Now, if you had a couple hundred acres of corn and a confinement barn, there's all the programs in the world for you. But grass based direct to consumer, we're on our own, buddy. Like we're
Mhm.
100%
That's right.
on
Absolutely.
our own. And it gets to be, sometimes I get to a little bit disheartened, I suppose, when I start thinking about, the larger machine of the production commodity beef industry, feedlots and corn and distillers grains and how many times some of those subsidies like pass through the system or how many links in the system are dependent on those subsidies. And I
Yeah.
compare that to my production cycle or to your production cycle. And it you said something about control. And we're talking about solving problems with food. And I think that there's a lot of government control that's exercised through the commodity programs, through the subsidy programs. And like without jumping completely off the reservation and getting on the conspiracy train, no, there's not a grand conspiracy to ruin everybody's health. That's just what happened. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just how it
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I really enjoyed the perspective that Damian Mason, the last podcast, came out on his perspective on the idea of the business of ag and how that really was affected by the evolution of the agriculture era. I mean, things things start with a niche, and you go through the cycle, becomes the norm, and then the margins go down. I mean, that's kind of the cycle with all innovation, it seems like.
yeah, yeah. I oh, this was several years ago and kind of a unrelated thing. Somebody asked me for some advice, and I said, if you feel the pressure of competition, you need to find a niche in that business and go live in it and go own it and go make it your own. And when you feel the pressure in that niche, you need to start looking for another one. And to some extent, yeah, the niche does become the mainstream. I remember going to, let's see, let me think, King Ranch Symposium on the Future of Beef Marketing in the fall of 2019, probably when the dreaded COVID was making its first rounds in the world. And I primarily went down there to listen to a presentation about beef chain, about tracing animals using blockchain technologies and blockchain cryptography,
Mhm.
tie unique record to that to that cow that, can't, that can always be traced, from in consumer all the way back to the person that originally put the record into the pasture. Still working on that. Um, but I remember another presentation where they were saying that the grass-fed beef industry was growing at something like 13% per year.
Wow.
For everybody around, I'll give you a really good rule here to go by. When something is growing at, say, 13%, so to figure out how long it's going to take that market to double, you take that percentage growth and you divide 70 by that number. So we can round up 13, we'll call it 14%, goes into 70, what, 5 times?
15, 26.
Yeah. Yeah, 14 goes into 75 times. So if grass-fed beef is growing at 14% a year, that market doubles in 5 years. Or 13 years doubles in 6. If it's 10%, it doubles in 7. So even though like a growth rate, 13%, that's hella good. If we're looking at return on investment, 13%, I mean, that'd be really, really high. But it's how long before grass-fed becomes niche? I don't see that happening. Like, and that's not a near-term thing. I don't think grass-fed becomes a niche in the near-term thing. Just because of the size of the industry. I think it's difficult to really wrap our heads around how big the beef industry is. Like just how ridiculously big it is. You milk 40 cows. I have 120. Like we're nothing. Like we're not even a statistical, we're not even a tenth of a tenth of a tenth of a percent.
Well, yeah. I think of it like the parallel I think of is just like people living in the rural areas and people living in the cities, just like, feedlot beef and grass-fed beef. I mean, there's so much more acreage, but a lot less cows, like in a concentrated area. And so like if we're in a grass-based system, like I said earlier, there's a limited amount of acres where you can really expand. And so it just has to be more widespread is really what it comes down to. Yeah.
I think what I'd like to see, and this is me dreaming, right? I'd like to see, for the 3-4 months that the grass is really good and animals are really, really stacking on pounds. That's when we take all of our grass animals. Like we take all the grass animals kind of late summer, early fall, before the forage starts going too bad, before you have to start winter supplementing.
Yeah.
Or having to feed through 2 feet of snow. That's when we need to be taking a lot of our cattle off grass. That's when we need to be doing our big grass-fed harvest. And then when the grass isn't good, when animals aren't finishing on grass, that's when they transition over and they start taking animals from the feedlots. Yeah, it's a real nice, easy concept to talk about, but logistically, and to put that in practice, be pretty difficult, I think.
Yeah. It's hard to turn a ship when the ship's been added to for quite a while. I mean, it's pretty good size industry.
Yeah. And I got another interview coming up. I was already supposed to do it. It was supposed to be next week's show with Mike Calicrate, but he had some personnel issues there just a few days before Christmas. And he ended up having to go drive a truck for a couple of days, and we couldn't get an interview done. I forgot where I was going with that, but that he'll be a good one to talk to about, marketing and just the size and the scope of the industry. I mean, feedlots are not going to go away anytime in our lifetime, I don't think. They might become a lot less important. They might change what they look like, but they're not going away.
Yeah.
And there's even as fast as grass fed is growing, no, we'll just leave it at that. I mean, there's going to be things that are changing, in the cattle and the beef industry, um, in the near future, but I don't think it's going to be the massive widespread change that the animal rights activists wish it would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Very likely. Very likely. Yeah. The one thing I'm just thinking of you mentioned about control. We talked about control, governments and subsidies, and that we're alone. The one thing that comes to my mind is after you said that was um, we think we're alone, but there is a very large consumer base behind us that we often don't put on our side enough. It really it 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 it's amazing to me how many people want the stuff we have, uh, and we might look to the farming industry to solve our problems instead of to the consumers to solve our problems. Like just like I said, solving food with problem or solving problems with food is just as we're solving the consumer's problem of a healthy food, whether it's for convenience, whether it's for just health or whatever. They're solving a big problem we have, of keeping the farm viable, keeping it attractive for other generations to come, and for the soil. When we're talking about the soil, we need to have we need to have income generating enterprises so we can keep going.
And not putting all those quote eggs in one basket, not relying on one single enterprise to make everything work. Well, I guess dairy cows,
Yeah.
but it's the
Yeah.
different products. It's not just milk. It's the milk
Yeah.
products. It's the value
Yeah.
add.
Right. Right. Every enterprise or whatever, there's a whole lot of things you can do within an enterprise to keep it diversified and keep it from becoming all your eggs in one basket. uh we've been on the side of too much, where there's just you have too many enterprises on a too small scale, where you can't manage them very well, and they're not profitable either. I mean, there has to be some amount of scale in order to stay viable. It doesn't have to be huge to start with. I mean, everybody needs to learn. I'm all about starting something from a small idea and growing it into a bigger one. But having 100 small ideas going and not having anyone doing well, I'm all about having something done well and diversifying within that, and being creative on either marketing or processing or partnering with others, on different single enterprises. So I think we often, if we're looking on a business scale, we often look at it as too much, as the more we can do, the better. Well, sometimes less is more when we're doing what we can do well and let others do what they can do well. But not at all. That is not saying I'm advocating for a 5,000 cow dairy and all confinement operation, selling all your milk to a co-op that markets all the milk for their own good. So
Well, um,
anyway,
so several years ago, okay, several years ago, 40 years ago, back in 1980, just after my parents moved back to this part of the world, uh, the community got together and made a history book. And I guess it was a thing like in the late 70s, early 80s that happened in a lot of areas, a lot of counties made a history book. And I spent some time over the holidays looking through it. And it goes through, the history of all the towns and when things were settled, and it also kind of gives a snapshot of what businesses are like, of what businesses are in, in that area in that late 1979, early 1980 timeframe. And without my notes, of course, going off memory, there was in the beginning of 1980, there were something like 4 or 5 dairies in Barber County. Currently, there are 0. But in 1980, there were 5 dairies, and the price of milk, I think, was $12 a hundred. Does that sound right?
In 1980? Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be right. Yeah. Mhm.
But do you have any idea what what the retail price of milk is now?
So, uh, I mean, it really varies from store to store and depends if it's, full
I mean,
fat or,
not retail. I'm
yeah.
sorry, like farm price.
Oh, farm price. Yeah. Uh, well, for the time that we were shipping milk on the truck, we in that time area, uh, growing up, I mean, I was born in the early 80s, and so I remember the 90s when there was times it dropped to $9. I think was $7 or $9 a hundred was the lowest. I remember it. It'd go up to 12, 15, and then in 2000s we saw up to 20 a couple times. It dropped back down to 15, and there was later, I think the highest that we received here uh was like 24, if I remember right. That was just one of those rare instances. um and so, yeah, like you're saying, $12 and up to 20, the things that the prices you see otherwise have changed dramatically in comparison. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've got a few other things to do today, Lloyd, and I imagine you do
Sure.
too. Unless you got anything else on your list, I think we go ahead and
I
wrap
don't
up.
think I don't think I have. I've Yeah, it's been good, and enjoy listening to your podcast. It's been great.
I enjoy you, and I enjoy coming up to your store. I even enjoy those overpriced bottles of cold brew coffee with real cream in them. I'm not gonna lie.
They're called Maple Cold Brew. That I was just trying to think of the name. They're called Maple Cold Brew. They have the real maple syrup from my cousin's farm in Indiana. So, yep.
There's usually 2 bottles of that come home every time that we make a run to
Oh
Borntrager's.
yeah,
We try to send
yeah.
2 bottles back every time too, because
Yeah. It's we've had people that think those bottles are so cute because the lids have the plaid coloring on it, and there's been people that's like, oh, we just they want to drink it, but they want to keep the bottle too. It's like, oh, I guess we're selling bottles too, so we'll do that.
yeah, and people don't consider what that bottle actually costs.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
yeah, I'll bring it back. I usually even try to rinse it out before I bring it back.
Oh, good, good. Well, they will get washed out either way. So,
All
yeah,
right. Well, great to see you, Lloyd. Enjoy
sure.
the rest of your week, gang. Y'all have a great week too.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
See you, Lloyd.
Bye.